Good afternoon. Hello there. Welcome in to a Friday edition of The Drive on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. It is your home of the Utes for 75 years and counting. And yes, Utah's number one sports talk. I am Porter Larson, filling in for Spence once again. He'll be back with you on a Monday. Sitting across from me once again is my buddy Tony Parks. And quite the outfit you got there today, Tony Parks.
Well, yeah. Yeah. It's college football night.
For listeners, to be clear, we are on YouTube.
At the ballpark at America First Square.
You can see Tony's very blue and yellow, big blue and maize yellow.
Well, big blue is Kentucky, but I know where you're going for. Yeah.
Michigan gear.
Yeah. You look uncomfortable about this. Why?
No. I'm not uncomfortable with it. In fact, a little birdie sent me a little bit of Michigan gear recently.
Okay.
So I'll be donning some of it on certain Saturdays this fall.
I wonder about that. Like, I ran into a guy, Kurt McGee, runs McGee Stampin' Trophy, had him do some work for some different stuff that I had been putting together at the ballpark, and he talked about how, loves local teams and this and that, but he'll also be watching and cheering on Michigan because he likes Kyle Whittingham and loves what he did here in the state and wants to get behind him. So are you, and then I'm curious if other Utah fans out there would be in support of Michigan because they like Kyle. I've heard some say so. But Spence and I talked about it. I don't believe that you have to pick one or the other in this whole thing.
Well, not until... Or if they
mean the
meet,
playoffs,
right?
That's clearly a different story. Obviously, you're not.
I think the question you're asking is going to be, it just depends on the person, right? It's going to be very polarizing. I think the majority of people, especially in year one, it's a little testy still. I think that there's a lot of folks who are not stoked about pulling guys from Utah, pulling coaches, recruits. We saw yesterday the University of Utah filed a lawsuit, not only pulling recruits to Michigan, but doing it while you're technically being paid by Utah.
Yeah.
That's something that they're going to have to figure out, and there's a lot of fans here in Salt Lake. I think online more so, the fans who are always online, terminally online, are always a little bit more angry. They're not stoked about it. And in fact, I think I saw a poll the other day, like half of the fans are cheering against Michigan.
Okay.
25% of them are like, whatever, it's neutral, and 25% are cheering for.
Okay.
So
I'm never going to tell somebody. I'll never tell them how to fan. Hey, cheer who for and for whatever reason.
Personally, I got to know Kyle really well.
Yeah.
Did the coach show for him for a decade, did all his press conferences, all his post-game stuff. I was the one plugging his headset in and getting him his kombucha. So I'm a Kyle guy. He not only was really good to me and really nice to me, but taught me a lot about football. I will always cheer for him, not just because of what he did for Utah, but just for personal, professional reasons.
Same. And I'm connected with Jay Hill anyway. It's so crazy now that they just happen to be with the team I've cheered for from the time I was a kid.
That being said, I'll never tell someone how to fan.
No.
There are Utah fans who feel aggrieved a little bit. They feel like, now I'll also say a lot of the fans who are really mad don't exactly know what played out behind the scenes sometimes, and that's another part of this. I think that there will be a healthy contingent of folks cheering against Michigan, a healthy contingent of Utah fans who just want to see Witt continue and do good and put a bigger brand upon the Utah name, and one that will be associated with Kyle forever. And then there are probably a bunch of people who are like, they're in the Big Ten now. I'm a Utah fan. I'm in my 10 square feet. Yeah. And I think that it really just depends on who you ask. But
I'm totally fine with that.
I think right now you're probably going to run into more people who are like, he won plenty. He did it here. It's our turn now, right? Ready for the Morgan era.
Good.
Ready to do it. And that's fine.
Great.
Fan how you want to.
Yeah. And by the way, when it comes to being a fan, hate is always something we're trying to get away from hate. Oh, when it comes to sport hate, you let all that hate out. You open up your heart and you let it out.
Absolutely. It's not the same.
Sports hate is not the same. Now, when you make it personal hate,
there you go.
Then you start getting into weird stuff and bad behavior. That's a whole nother deal because that's no longer sports hate.
Right.
It's an issue with you. Now that I would suggest you get different help for. Now, sports hate, when you keep it just with sports, it's awesome.
I absolutely cannot stand certain players, certain teams when it comes to the sports, right? If I were ever to meet them in person, it's different because it's not the same as like a personal beef or like, a family issue. No, this is a game. This is, yes, an economy and people's livelihoods now. But ultimately, if I'm emotional about a team, that's separate from real life. Mm-hmm. I don't think that everyone necessarily does that. I think that there's plenty of lines crossed, especially when you start wagering on stuff. But yeah, like I have maybe one exception, and that's Chase Utley. It's on site if I ever see Chase Utley. I can't.
And even then, we understand the humor that goes into this. Yes,
right, I say that with a smile.
You clearly do, and because if you actually meant it, it would be a problem. Yeah,
but also, if I see Chase Utley in public, we might have to figure that out, Tony. That's an old baseball one, right?
Yeah, right.
He, with the Phillies and otherwise, was just always like a complete enemy of the Mets. And I never liked him before. And then he did that slide away from second base and broke our shortstop's leg, if you recall.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I think I was like 14 or 15 or something. I promised myself if I ever saw Chase Utley in public, it's on site. We're throwing hands. He'll kick my ass, but
well, yeah, but you're giving it a shot. Yeah, that's funny, man. I think it's unique. I think the Michigan thing is one of the most unique things now. I mean, I have had, it's so crazy because for me, I'm not attached to it in that way. Me as a fan in this, I find it unique that I've had both. I've got the Michigan fan base and then having a place in the Midwest, obviously, and then being out here. I'm amazed with the misconceptions both of the program of Michigan and then the misconceptions of Whittingham. And we talked about that a little bit yesterday.
Right.
And I find it so interesting when I'm having conversations with both sides about exactly why and what. And so it's fun. Like, that's why I'm so excited to see the games be played. But I find it so eye-opening. It's because, Detroit sports radio's out there like, this guy's a gauze pad. He's just there to help patch things for a couple years until you get somebody else in there. He's just old and trying to make some money. And
just a nice, calm transition, right?
What are you talking about? You think Kyle's in there to go to a bowl game and ride it out and make some money? No, he wants to win a national title. You think Jay Hill is heading up there to just join his buddy and, enjoy those crisp fall afternoons in Ann Arbor? No. It's so funny. And then Kyle's honest about not hating Ohio State and having a friendship with Urban. Oh, he doesn't get it. No, he understands football and winning, guys.
Right.
Yeah. Trust me. Kyle knows how to put the BS to the side and just make it about football.
Well, and to be clear,
I've seen it plenty of times.
You just got to watch what he did at Utah and with the rivalry here.
Right.
He was friends with Kalani Sitake.
Right.
That did not stop him from being really serious about the rivalry, about that week.
100%.
You walked into that building on a rivalry week, and it felt different. It felt like heavier and more serious. Not that they weren't serious throughout the season, but especially when you'd face BYU and you did it late in the year, you could tell there was a little bit of a different approach going on up there. He understands that. It's going to be interesting to see.
And then it's interesting to watch fans be like, well, I don't know, he's not a Michigan man. I'm like, no, he actually checks every box. He doesn't have to be from Kalamazoo, guys, to understand what being a Michigan man actually is. And he fits it and embodies it in every way, and so does Jay Hill, and I could go right down the list of those coaches. Is you now have great alignment, you now have what you need. They're excellent with fundamentals. All the sloppiness that I watched last year with Michigan football, they're going to tighten that up. And then it's interesting because then I had a guy ask me, okay, if you had one criticism of Kyle, what would it be? And I said, this is the ultimate chicken and egg conversation, but passing game. You never had receivers that really lit it up. You never had like an elite core of receivers in that Power 5 conference. And then you start talking about who were the really great quarterbacks, right? Did he let them evolve? Were they underdeveloped? Did they recruit them incorrectly? Did they mismanage them? That is all so subjective and up in the air. And then somebody will be like, well, Brian Johnson's senior year was great. Well, his last 4 games were great. The first 9 games, that 08 team had plenty of blemishes. They very seldomly looked anything like a top 10 team, but they were undefeated. And they continued winning games. And then the last 4 games, that was a whole nother level. And Brian was at a whole nother level. So I always say, and I find it so interesting, because it'll be this way this season. This is one thing I want to get to. In any season or an event or something that's important to you, or a relationship, friendship, whatever it is, people will usually remember 2 things more than any. The most intense part and the way it ends.
Right.
And so that's why I think it's going to be challenging to continue to reframe and appropriately view all 3 seasons, that being BYU, Utah, and Michigan, if we're going to include them in this, with Kyle Whittingham. Because it's like the Brian Johnson thing. He's remembered, legend, this, that. Yeah. No, you remember the most intense moments. Big throw against TCU, the win against Bama and BYU, right? And you remember how it ended. 13-0, Sugar Bowl, number 2, all that. You forget the fumble for a touchdown against Air Force. You forget some of the debacles that occurred earlier in the year. You completely forget those. And so this year's going to be unique because Kyle and Michigan could start undefeated, lose at Oregon, lose at Ohio State, and now it's this guy can't win the big games. He didn't have his team ready. He doesn't understand the rivalry, and it's weird how that's going to happen. So same thing with Morgan. He could have an exceptional year, and they lose on a blocked field goal in overtime against BYU, and everybody then will shift how they view everything. It's like, don't. And so I thought, I don't know if you heard the comment from Curt Cignetti, who he was asked about defending his national championship. It's like, we're not defending anything. Everybody's 0-0. And it's just like, dude, this guy gets it, man. He just knows how to put the perfect lens and to frame it just right and to keep the focus where it's going.
As a fan, it can be easy to kind of zoom out and look at things differently. But yeah, if you're a head coach, you're 0-0. We're starting over, especially, Tony, in a college football landscape where, yes, you get quite a bit of returning production. If you're Curt Cignetti, if you're Utah, if you're BYU, you do have quite a bit of returning.
There you go.
Production. But in college football today, the differences year to year in a roster, in a coaching staff, all of the above, it's a separate, or it's a whole nother ball game, right? It's a completely new season, and you may have a little bit of momentum. You may get a little bit of a push from how you finished last year, right? Sometimes you can see that, but it really does need to be wipe the slate clean and run it back, because it's just too much of a turnover in today's age of college football. And we had a very good peek into multiple off seasons here in the state where so much happened that you just can't look at that and think that you're going to build off it entirely. You have to, in some way, shape, or form, kind of start anew.
Yeah.
And especially when you're replacing a head coach who's been here for 30 years and moving on to the next guy in Morgan Scalley. I will say, you mentioned, like, there are some people in Michigan who are, like, a little uneasy with a random guy from out west coming in and taking over their program. That's not a problem at Utah. Morgan Scalley is a lifer.
Yeah.
He's hiring guys and keeping guys on staff, a Luther Ellis, a Colton Swan. You go down the list of his assistants, his staff. Morgan seems to take value in what you kind of alluded to. You don't need your coach to be a former player or from your community, but man, there's got to be some type of value when you go all in on something like that, the way Morgan is.
Oh, yeah.
Right? When you have so much familiarity with the program, with the culture you're building, but also with your recruiting footprint, with people around the football community, with donors and such, right? I mean, this was talked about a little bit when Morgan was hired. His grandma's a Garf, right? Just the connections, because part of what happened with Kyle on the way out was he kind of got a little sideways with some donors, right? How does Morgan, a guy who is a Utah man, is a Salt Lake guy, is a Ute from player all the way up through coach and more, how does he use that to his advantage with donors, with the community, with the recruiting footprint, with all of the above? I think, although you don't need that, you can hire a guy from Bowling Green, and he can come in here and give you an undefeated season, right? You don't need that type of identity tied to your program. But, man, there's got to be some value when you do and when you go all in on it like Morgan has.
I think Morgan, first of all, he's so aware. He's so intelligent. I'm not just being nice because I like the guy and know the guy and have positive emotions towards him. I always try to be very, very careful with that. I mean, like I liked Ty Detmer and I was very positive and had positive emotions about him.
Right.
But I also had to be honest that his lack of experience was probably going to be a problem. I don't think this is obviously anything like that. But the positive emotions that I have towards him, that's not just why I feel good about Morgan in this position. When you are in the position Morgan was in, you can't know everything. But there's a few things Morgan, I'm sure, watched in the Whittingham era where he said, wow, that really makes Kyle special. Whoa, that right there is why Kyle is a cut above the rest. And I don't doubt somewhere in that process, he watched Kyle and then spoke to others and was around others and realized, you know what? I could actually probably learn something about not doing that there or not doing that there because nobody's perfect. Literally nobody's perfect. Kyle Whittingham was not perfect. I guarantee behind the scenes, and it doesn't mean that he was toxic. I'm not going to that level. I'm not even saying that he was destructive in any way. But there's just little small things time and time again, little things that you notice while you watch a guy that you look up to and a guy that you're learning so much from that you can pick up on how to close a gap that might be somewhere. I don't know what those things are. Maybe it's a relationship with a donor. Maybe it's a donor wanted this and you weren't wanting to deliver and there was an indifference and Kyle handled it one way and maybe you wouldn't give the donor what they wanted, but you knew how to handle it to where the relationship stayed in a much healthier position. I don't know what that is. Like I'm saying, this is all gray area. I'm not behind the scenes, but you'd have to know that over that many years, watching it with a front row seat, you saw stuff that maybe you noticed a deficit that somebody else wouldn't. And you now keep that in mind as you go through it. And then there's going to be stuff where you're realizing it because you never experienced it and going, wait a minute, I have to handle this. I've never had that. This is new. So I don't think Morgan's blind, obviously, but there's going to be stuff that he's experiencing for the first time and learning as he goes. And then there's going to be things where he goes, you know what? I watch this. I can forecast it. I understand pattern recognition to a different level. I can get ahead of this. So I'm confident no matter what, that the things he doesn't know, he'll learn them well as he goes, and it'll be better for the long term and all that. And I'm excited for this season. Like I said, I picked 9 wins. I think this dude is ready, and I think coaches that have been primed for these opportunities are in place and they're ready. And they've been wanting to show what this is about.
I know a lot of fans are giddy with excitement. They think 10, 11 wins is kind of a shoe-in. 9 wins. If Utah got 9 wins in Morgan's first year, that's a win. That's a big, solid first year, especially a guy who's replacing a bunch of his staff, replacing an offensive line entirely, a bunch of new faces on the defensive line. If he were to get to 9 wins, that would be probably not a Big 12 title berth, probably not a playoff run or any of the like. It would be a good bowl game, and it would be a really, really good result in year 1. Not necessarily a home run, but it would be, in my opinion, a really, really positive start for Morgan Scalley. We will talk more Utes kickoff. We'll talk a little bit going around the Big 12. We'll give you a PGA Tour leaderboard update as round 2 of the FedEx Cup playoff rolls along. All that and more on the show today with myself, Porter Larson, that guy, Tony Parks. Kenneth Gooby Scott will join the show a little bit later on. Coach Guy Holliday will stop by and to give us the lowdown on the aforementioned PGA Tour. It is Paul Pugmire of Utah Golf Radio. All of that still to come on the show today. First segment brought to you by our friends at IFA Country Stores. IFA has a team of pro turf and landscape sales consultants that help provide products and services to local football, baseball, and soccer fields at high schools getting ready to go back to school around the state. Plus, IFA works with golf courses, parks, and other city properties throughout Utah. It's the same knowledge and care they can share with you about your yard, only at IFA and IFA.coop. Back on the other side, the drive continues on Utah's #1 sports talk in your home of the Utes for 75 years. It's ESPN 792.1 FM. Welcome back. Drive time on a Friday afternoon. We'll send you into the weekend. Hope it's a good one for you. Tony Parks, myself, Porter Larson, taking you through it. Spence will be back with you on a Monday edition of The Drive. And as always, Tony, little twang on the show when we're in charge. But I got to say, after our country music debate, conversation, whatever you want to call it, yesterday, I accidentally got the internet involved a little bit.
Okay. Took it to another level.
So we talked a little bit about how like radio country, chart country right now is not great sometimes. Very simple. Sometimes seems like it's written by ChatGPT.
Predictable. Not great with storytelling.
Right.
Doesn't feel original.
Very much the opposite of what we talked about with a lot of your 90s country and earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent out a tweet after a friend of the show, Luke Bryan, put out what can only be described as like the weirdest, truly to me feels like it was written by an AI chatbot.
Okay.
Little snippet of one of his new songs. And this tweet of mine has more interaction than anything I've ever posted about football. Currently up to 1.6 million people have seen it, and like thousands of folks are getting in on the conversation. I think we need a reset in that regard.
Country music?
In that regard, yes.
Country music is Nebraska football.
It's gotten boring.
No, I mean they were amazing in the 90s.
Okay.
Just amazing. Absolutely spectacular. Loved it. You know, previous era was terrific. And now, I mean, you know, it's not like whatever Buffalo football, right? It's not Eastern Michigan.
Right.
But it's just, you know, they're fine. Not abysmal, but you're not what it was. There was nothing like it. I just, the depth of it was fun. You look forward to it. New music would come out. It sounded great. I mean, yeah, you could name off 25 of the best during that decade, and then I would mention the next 25, and you'd be like, oh, yeah, I forgot about them and them and them. Like, you will leave somebody great out of the top 25. Your others receiving votes would be in the top 5 now. And I know that's just one man's opinion. I got it. Like, I just have always tried to be aware. Is it just me being older and being attached to an era and an experience? Because that happens. I'm not saying it doesn't. Or is it actually true? Right? And so I remember my sister, who's 13 years younger than I am, and she loves country, and I like country. And one time we're on this road trip, and I said, okay, I will play you a song from the era I like the best. And then you play me one from your, you know, that you think I would like. We went on the, here's what I think you'll like. And we knew we'd be honest about it. 8 out of 10. She loved him. 8 out of 10. Heads, Carolina, tails, California. She was all over it. She was like, that is such a great song. Oh my gosh, what a great song. Yeah. And then when she played hers, I was like, maybe 2 out of 10. I was just like, and let me guess, from Georgia, loves the river and his truck and if that, yeah, okay.
That's a Luke Bryan. You just made a Luke Bryan song, by the way.
It was really cool, yeah. And it just had no melody and no. Anyway, I don't mean to like, but then I was curious, like, am I just being the older, get off my lawn guy? It was back in my day, it was the best. I'm just curious because it's kind of like that same thing, LeBron and Jordan thing. Like, I go Jordan, and the people are like, well, no, you're just clinging to your era, and you're... No, I mean, the dude was unbelievable, right? Like, yeah. So, and then everybody deciphers on which one they think was better and why. Now, I think me personally, I think there's quite a gap between country now and the 90s compared to LeBron and Jordan. I think there's a real argument with LeBron and Jordan, even though I'll pick Jordan. I personally don't even think there's an argument with country in the 90s and country now.
There's not.
It's just not close.
We're talking about like a bunch of different artists, a bunch of different people,
Sure.
but we're talking about what's mainstream, what's popular right now. There are actually quite a few artists that are doing 90s country. Zach Top is really talented. You would actually, as a fan of Alan Jackson and some of the 90s stuff, you would actually, if you haven't, I would go listen to a little bit of Zach. New stuff, right? He's a young kid, but he's not putting out radio Nashville country right now. He's putting out 90s stuff, essentially. So yeah, we're bridging the gaps, and I had to bring that to the air after our conversation yesterday because I couldn't believe I woke up and I had more notifications on my social media stuff than I have had definitely since football season.
Oh yeah.
But maybe even beyond that because I woke up some people who are I think mostly agreeing with me that they have gotten a little sick of like the retreaded, very much seemingly simple, no melody.
Like,
and the
are you country? Are you pop? Are
the lyrical
what
stuff
are you
is
trying to be
really bad.
Yeah, like what I can't figure it out. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. I mean, we haven't even mentioned like how great Tim McGraw was. Tim McGraw was amazing. One of the better concerts I've ever been to. And the guy that opened for him randomly, we would always go early, my wife and I. And I was like, man, I actually really love that opening act. That guy was really good. Never heard him. His name was Jason Aldean. Like
there you go.
2 years later, he explodes, right?
I'll be honest.
It's like,
I think that's the bridge, though. That's where it started a little bit, is around their time it started to turn as far as you're not putting out albums and art as a something that you're building and you're putting it out when it's ready. You're putting it out as a product for Nashville.
Okay.
And I think even Tim McGraw and especially Jason Aldean got wrapped into that. I love there's like 10 Tim McGraw songs that I think are awesome. And then he got part of this machine that just turns out stuff, whether it's good or not. Jason Aldean very much did so.
The very first time I ever remember listening to something, and I was kind of like, you know what? I this isn't like I don't know. This is the Dixie Chicks. I remember when that guy, and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm used to like high-level female artists and Reba McEntire, who it just blows this out of the water. Like, this is not. I thought they actually did a really nice job on Landslide, but I'm like, that's a remake, so I mean, that's not even. But a lot of it just it didn't have. And what was great about country in that era, real quickly, you could have a positive song, you could have a song that had some bounce and energy in life, you could have a downer, and they were all good.
Right.
They were all amazing.
Well, that's because the people were writing songs about what they were going through.
It was incredible.
Not just someone in a room in a production studio getting a song just to release it, just to get another dollar, another buy, another whatever it may be. And now it's another download, another interaction on the internet. Whatever we can get to get more content. That's not what an album should be. That's not what music should be, in my opinion, right? You should, if it takes you 10 years to put a collection of 10 good songs together, that's what it should take. Whereas artists now are putting out an album every 3, 4, 5 months or every year because they're on a schedule and a contract with the production company, and they have to do it. That's when we started getting far away from like what I think was quality, now quantity in some ways.
And I'm saying, hey, I know you're Nebraska football right now, but you could become Indiana football.
There you go.
You're not far away.
There you go.
You're one really good year, and Ella Langley really got us started the right direction here with choosing Texas. It got us switched back because look at the following of that song and the energy. And I always said the reason why I think so many people fell in love with that song is it's a 90s country song. If you listen to the sound, the feel, the delivery, everything about it, the storytelling aspect, there's the play on words, all of it.
Refreshing for sure.
It was so good, man. First time I heard it, I was like, love this song. We're back. We are back. But if we turn this thing around and go back to the river and the mud and the trucks and the mud, and it's like, oh, dude, what are we doing?
Yeah, I really do think that the corporatizing of Nashville, right, where it just turned into a machine, churning out content rather than making music is where it really got lost. And that was, I don't know, 15 years or so ago.
But you started quite a storm, though.
Apparently. Now I'm playing Buck Owens on the radio. Kind of related.
Yeah.
As music got commercialized, corporatized, and got worse, I want to ask how comfortable you are with essentially that happening to college sports, happening to pro sports. We're seeing the dollar, whether it's TV revenue, whether it's gambling money, whether it's the NIL stuff, it's taking a not even just a front seat, but a driver's seat when it comes to the sports world, right? Tony, 15 years ago, I could turn on the Jazz game, K-Jazz, on my antennas. It was free. Me and my grandma could watch the Jazz game, didn't pay a dime. We could go to the game, get a scalper outside selling nosebleeds for $3, right? We go have a good time. The Jazz Bear would come up and spray me with silly string and all the above. We're now in a place, and you work on the inside of a minor league sports team, and you have done so with pro teams as well. So you've got an extra look at this. But we're seeing season ticket holders get priced out. We're seeing seats, like just the chair in the stadium, slowly be replaced by executive suites and booths and clubs and such. We're seeing, and Sean talked a bit about this on the show yesterday, at BYU they're selling now, and I think this is not a bad idea. I think you should auction it off, maybe raffle it to make it a little more authentic. But if you want Cosmo to come to your seat during the Notre Dame game, you can just pay BYU directly, and Cosmo's going to come visit your seat and play with your kid, take a picture, right? The Big 12 has a jersey patch now. Monster Energy in the Big 12. They're a tandem pairing. I wonder, like, how you feel about the direction of sports moving. Not that it always hasn't been about money in some way. It's a business. I get it. It's a front-facing, revenue-generating business on all fronts. But it seems that we're getting to a point where it's like, is there anything that we just don't have to monetize? Like, is there something that we can save where it's not for commercial? I saw with the World Cup, they did the hydration breaks, and it was so clear to me that wasn't so guys could go get hydrated. It was so they could get another commercial break in.
Absolutely. 2-minute warning, yeah.
And it just feels like a lot of tradition and story in sports are taking a back seat to the driver's seat that is just revenue, whatever it takes, whatever it means.
Yeah, it's
uneasy for me.
No, it does, because it starts to become something we're foreign with, right? And then you understand, I mean, it's a business. You have to go make money. You have to do those things.
Right.
And I think teams are going to have this weird thing, like minor league teams have this unique battle between, we want to look top level. We want to look premier. We want to look big time. We also understand, let's say we're a minor league team, but we're not going to go small time. And then you start trying to monetize everything. There's no doubt about it. All the time, I look at the cost for a basic family of four to go to a major pro sporting event. Now, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. In the years that I've lived in Chicago, we've gone to more Sox and Hawks games than any other game. Why? They're free. We've got friends who work for the organization. The cost of a basic ticket to a basic game is not reasonable. We might pay for one sporting event a year because, Porter, it's just, it's obviously, it starts to get out of hand. There's no doubt. Then you get into parking, which we don't have to worry about that, but parking and this and that and the other. And that's why I've always said, any fan who said, I'm sorry, I'll support the team, I'll cheer the team on, I'm not paying money. I'm not investing my dollars. We're going to go to a movie. We're going to go to Lagoon. We're going to, whatever you want to do. I've always said, for the sports fan, if you need to scale back, it doesn't mean that you giving up your Ute season tickets, Jazz season tickets, whatever it is. any streaming subscription, that does not lower your fanhood or anything like that. It doesn't. And don't ever let a, team store advertisement tell you something different. Just don't.
It doesn't lower your fanhood, but
my thing is,
does it affect your fandom? For you?
For me, no.
Right.
For me, no. And this is why. So for me personally, no. I'm still a fan of it all. I follow it all. I see it all. It's all a big intermixing thing.
We get credentials though.
We get credentials, but even then, just me following my favorite teams. Yeah. I mean, there's going to be unique things that start to happen where things get monetized all the time. It'll happen in college sports, and people will say, "Boy, I wish it was the way it was, where it was so pure and it was so this." It's like, well, it was still corrupt and it was still, far from the purest. But you may have a favorite version of it. Anybody who said, with any of the nonsense away from the game, you know what, I don't want to watch anymore. Fine. Because that's the best way to speak to your distaste to something, right? You don't like the prices, you shouldn't buy them. You don't like if something is I was talking to you about this just yesterday. You and I had a college football conversation about the local college football teams. We went on for 35 minutes, and at the end of it, we looked at each other and said, we didn't mention one player's name.
Right.
This whole time. And we haven't talked about it. And one thing that is hurting this is my opinion, is that the conflicts that are existing are making it, instead of us on a Tuesday talking about Monday Night Football and talking about Joe Montana and his performance as a member of the Chiefs, and should the 49ers have ever given up on him? And boy, Steve Young's good, but man, Montana still got it. And what a great drive against the Broncos. And he hits Willie Davis for the touchdown with 7 seconds left. We don't talk about that. Now we're talking about everything except the game. We're talking about everything. That's the part where I see it starting to drive some fans away. And that's the part for me as a sports lover where I'm going, oh my gosh, no, let's always keep it about the game. But I get that I'm in the minority there. I'm not going to pretend they have to. So you're right. It starts to drive us a bit away from what we loved so much about it. I'm not going to fault a business for saying, I'm sorry, we got to maximize profit. That's where we are.
Right.
That's the way this is. That's how I keep my job. That's how I get other people jobs. That's an economy. That's the way it works. As a fandom, it doesn't affect my fandom, but I can see how it affects somebody else's. I work in it. I'm around it all the time. So the business of sports is something that I'm connected to, so it doesn't alter my fandom.
Well,
but if it's not something you're connected to,
right, and
you work a job and sports is your escape, and it's like every time I go to escape, I got to hear about this or see that or deal with that. No, thanks.
And that's the perspective I'm coming from, because I like you, I make a living in this business. I understand it has to generate revenue or else my job ceases to exist. I get that part. But there's a line, right? For me, example here. Maybe you're a Jazz fan who is a little bit disillusioned over the last 5 years of losing basketball, right? Maybe you're a little disillusioned that you're in a small market and you're seeing what's going on in the NBA, where a guy like Steve Ballmer is able to kind of just do whatever he wants in the sandbox. Mm-hmm. And if he does get a slap on the wrist, it's exactly that. It's a slap on the wrist. We'll see what all that comes down to. We will. And then you see your team get fined by the NBA for, I don't know what, hurting their TV product for a couple days, hurting their gambling product a little bit. And then you turn on the game and all you see is a DraftKings ad. Goes to commercial, another commercial for a gambling partner. And then 2 months later, Tony, it's the off season. You're wondering how much you're going to invest yourself in a basketball team. And you see an indictment drop where two of the players on that team are now under investigation for being part of the gambling scandal, right? Jazz players are currently under part of those investigations. Not current ones, former ones, and Malik Beasley and otherwise. To me, it becomes a question and a conversation of where is that line?
If the league,
Adam Silver doesn't know where that line is, and it's an issue.
And I think that's a major problem. Look, I have never been this commissioner's horrible, he sucks, he this and that. People used to bag on David J. Stern all the time. I was definitely not going to go
Roger
there.
Goodell
I thought
gets
he
booed.
elevated it. Roger Goodell gets booed, and look at the NFL and look at the business.
Roger Goodell gets booed off the stage every time he makes a public appearance.
Yeah.
When you look around the landscape of pro sports right now, Dude, he might be the best commissioner in pro sports.
This dude's unbelievable. Rob Manfred has made all these wonderful changes to baseball, right? But to me, Adam Silver, where the line comes from is if you clearly are missing the mark and you're always late, you're always reactive, and you're late to the party.
Right.
This got so far out of hand that it reached this level. And then when it gets that far out of hand, sometimes it gets worse before it gets better. And that's my problem with Adam Silver. And when some people say, well, at the end of the day, it's the NBA and people are going to watch, man. It's like, no, it's true. But people can also start to watch other stuff and they start to lose trust in it. I used to be the biggest boxing fan ever. And I mean ever. And it died. It completely died. It was corrupt. It was nonsensical. And the big names were gone. And I didn't look forward to any of the big matchups anymore. I still keep an eye on it. By the way, lover of the sport. I love the strategies. I love to get into that. But any boxing conversation I have, it's Holyfield, Tyson. We can go back to the Wayback Machine and talk about Gene Fulmer, who I think is the greatest athlete in the history of the state. That's a different discussion. But my point, Porter, is it affected my fandom. That affected my desire to watch, my desire to follow. It just did, man. It just really did because it hit those levels. So I think the NBA is a great example of that. When it comes to how expensive something is or a jersey patch, that doesn't. But when it's like, wait, there's a lack of authenticity to what I'm watching. And there's not appropriate punishments for things that are getting out of hand. Yes. Yeah. That will start to affect it. So, there's a line.
It's a long conversation. We could have 7 4-hour shows about this specifically. But I think the NBA is starting to toe a line that could get really ugly in that direction.
I think they need to get it together fast, actually.
I'm with you. All right. That segment brought to you by our friends at IFA Country Stores. Like any good coach, it's time to update the game plan for a healthy green lawn. As the weather continues this month, make sure you're using IFA Step 3 Spring and Summer Lawn Food for healthy turf that stays green every season. It's IFA's Step 3 Lawn Food. It's the ultimate lawn owner power move at IFA and IFA.coop. Back on the other side, a former Ute. We'll talk about the wide receiver room and expectations for the Morgan Scalley era with Gooby. Kenneth Scott joins the drive on the other side on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back. Drive Time on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Spence is out today. It is myself, Porter Larson, the usual producer of this here program. That guy, Tony Parks, voice of the Bees, longtime Jazz in arena man. He'll be on the call. He'll be on the mic. PA
announcer, yeah,
for the Utes kickoff game. So you'll hear him at Rice Eccles Stadium in 13 days from right now.
Man, I am geeked out to be on the mic for Morgan Scalley's first game.
That's pretty cool.
Rice Eccles. It's a historic night, and to be a part of it in that exact way, geeked, man. Personally, the connection with Morgan that I've had, knowing him, following him, big fan of him personally, awesome.
That'll be great.
Jacked up. Now the only thing I need to do is let them have me on the mic now for Kyle's opening game.
There you go.
and then it's full circle, man.
There you go. Get Tony to Ann Arbor for the big house. Hey, Camp Scally is underway for Utah football, as you guys know. For the best coverage of Utes fall camp, keep it tuned to Sean and The Drive every day, or visit ESPN700sports.com. Camp Scally, brought to you by CenXL, JBR Clinical Research, Beer Bar, Citron Cooperman, Big O Tires, Sound Warehouse, and your Utah Toyota dealers. On your home of the Utes for 75 years and counting. Speaking of the Utes, former wide receiver, former Ute great, he is one Kenneth Gooby Scott. He joins the program on the telephone line right now. K. Scott, been a minute, my man. How are you?
Man, amazing, man. I can't complain one bit. It's pretty nice out here in Seattle, Washington, where I am right now. So can't complain. Nice weather. Played a good round of golf today. So can't complain, man. Just ready to talk some Utes per usual.
Yeah, I brought you in with a Texas-themed song as I thought that's where you would be residing. But no, you're traveling today. Playing some golf?
Mm-hmm.
How'd you shoot it?
Some golf. I did pretty good. Bogey golf. That's always the best type of golf for us non-professionals. Bogey golf.
That's
we call it boogie golf in your world, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
Golf. There we go.
Yeah.
That's if I can try to play bogey golf, that means I'm having a good day. Right. If there's no 7s or 8s or 9s on that scorecard, that means I'm having a good day hitting the ball.
If that's all I have on the scorecard, I'm having a good day.
Yeah.
Right.
Give us a little update on Kenneth Scott's off season. You sometimes are a little more quiet. We don't hear from you as much during off season when there's no football. But man, I think Kenneth, we've got plenty to catch up on after this off season. No.
Yes, without a doubt. You're totally right. When it's off season, I'm like, come on, let's hurry up and get to the season, man. I'm tired of practice. Let's get to the games. But no, I'm super excited, man. Especially with all that's been brewing with Coach Scally. Love that guy. So excited to talk Utes football again. It's about time. It's about time.
Well, I'm excited to talk about this. Well, first of all, I listen to your music in the gym of all places. I know, and I know you connected with my good friend and former Ute great John Madsen. Yep, and you do help the work with his podcast and all that. So yeah, when I'm listening to that, I hear your work coming on in. I'm like, there we go. That's how it all starts. Is right there. You better believe it, man. You're no one trick pony. I'll put it that way, right? You know. Well, here's what I want to know is, I mean, obviously you were on offensive side of the ball, but you're around Coach Scally. You're around a number of coaches now at differing points where they have been primed for the opportunity. Not just Coach Scally, but other people on that staff, but specifically Scally. What do people who've never seen him behind the scenes, what do they need to know about him that gives you the great amount of confidence that he's going to have a great year one?
The first thing I think is the connection. Obviously, Coach Witt did a great job connecting, but I think when it comes to Coach Scally, that's something that if you know from anybody, that's one thing he loves. He loves connecting with individuals. I know from us and our leadership camps that we did, that's one thing he prided on. It's like, hey, I want to go to these leadership camps, and one thing I wanted to take away from this moment here is being able to connect with one another. Because if you connect with each other, you're going to play harder for each other, and the outcome's going to be a lot better. So that's number one. He cares about his players. He loves his players. You kind of hear that throughout the press conference. Not saying like Coach Witt didn't, because he did. Coach Witt was phenomenal. But I'm just saying when it comes to Coach Scally, he's a players type of coach. Like, he loves that element of it. So with that, it comes his passion. You know, passion for not only him wanting to be great, but the players to be great. And so as you guys see on the defensive end, I'm excited to see what he's going to do on the offensive end, you know, bringing that creativity, bringing that risk-taking type of mentality. So that's what I'm excited for. I know you mentioned I was on the offensive side of the ball, but being an offensive guy, seeing what he brings to defensive end, the creativity, the risk taking. I can only imagine he's going to do that on the offensive side, which is going to allow a lot more people to kind of flourish, especially maybe on the outside, right? Something that we haven't been doing it for a very long time. But I think this will be the sort of moment, the sort of thing that can be attributed to. So I think it's going to be really good for him in his first year of just trying out new things.
I mentioned that a little bit on the show yesterday, where it may kind of unshackle the offense in some ways. I don't want to characterize that as a diss or a critique of Kyle. He had some of the best rushing offenses in the country. Even had some of the most balanced offenses in the country. Clearly there was production there. But the thing you mentioned with Morgan is his risk taking. He year in and year out is among the heaviest blitzers in college football, knowing when and where and how to do that, right? I wonder if now that he has the chance to oversee at least part of the offensive side of the ball, if we see some of that, if we see that risk-taking carry over into a side of football that for years at Utah has been about running it down your throat and running the clock out. I wonder how much that changes. And if it does, Gooby, what you see that potential identity being under a Morgan Scalley. You mentioned the outside stuff. I don't know that means we have 1,000-yard receiver this year. I think there's maybe too many guys in that room. But what type of approach do you think you could see from Morgan Scalley that we haven't seen yet because of Kyle kind of having a different thought process and identity offensively?
Yeah, definitely different philosophy without a doubt. I wouldn't say it would be 50-50. I would say it would be more 60-40 because you still got to lean heavy on that running game, right? We got a bulk of horses back there. Wayshawn, I want him to get 1,000 yards. I was mad that he didn't get it last year, but I know this year he's going to get 1,000. And he got a stable of horses right behind him that can, get some a lot of production. Then you add the ground element with Devon, Dampier, and Bird. So, of course, that's going to bring some type of production. But as far as, like what you mentioned, the 1,000-yard receiver, there's a lot of people in that room. I've always been a big fan of Larry Simmons. That's my guy. I love watching him. I don't know. For some reason, I've always related to him. But obviously, the transfers coming in, they're going to bring a lot of production to the room too. So I don't see 1,000 yards, but I do see multiple people, 800, 700, 600. I can see it, 800-yard receiver, 700-yard receiver, and a 600-yard receiver. That's not a bad thing. That's really good. And then you add tight ends in the mix. I can see them having about 500, 600 yards, right? So I can see a more I don't think there's going to be a standout as far as one guy's going to have 1,000 and the next person going to have 200. I think it's going to be well balanced around the receiver room, and you add the tight end element to it. It's going to be a balanced pass offense, which is great. So that's what I see a lot of. Going to be a lot of creativity, and so I'm excited about that part. It's going to be really fun to watch. In my opinion, I think it's going to be real fun to watch.
This is my favorite overall year in college football ever. Coming into the year, I grew up a massive Michigan fan in my family. I'm a big Kyle Whittingham fan. I'm a big Morgan Scalley fan. We're talking personally, Jay Hill, Kalani Sitake. The names go on and on. You know this.
I'm torn.
Yeah. Yeah. See, the weird thing is for me, I'm like, go everybody. This is great. Yeah.
Even BYU.
Yeah.
I know people hate me saying it, but BYU too. Coach A-Rod, come on, Coach Sitake.
Yeah, it's really unique. So having it all together. Well, I had to answer the question because I've had a lot of Michigan fans and friends and things like that asking about Kyle, and I find it unique, the misconception sometimes when I'm like, quarterback guru? Wait, what? And then on the other side, some Michigan media talking about Kyle's a gauze pad for the program, and I'm going, I'm sorry, excuse me. Anyway, well, I was asked about what drawback would you have if there was a drawback or if there was something you would be critical of Kyle Whittingham, and I just said, look, the overall pass game year after year, I can't put a finger on it because it's kind of a chicken and egg type thing. I said there's a lot of variables. Now, I'm going to give you all the ones. I'm going to lay them out quick. Maybe lack of trust at times in who he hired as OC. Maybe QB wasn't there yet, too young, too risky to allow to sling it. Maybe a receiver group that wasn't collectively explosive enough. Run game so good, there was no reason to take some of those risks down the field. Right? Now, all of these things, there's got to be partial truth in some of these and some of those. Is there one of those ingredients that you thought had a bigger dose compared to the others?
Man, let's talk about it. Like I always talk about it. Like, come on, I had my running back years. I mean, all my running backs, they always broke the previous running back's record.
Yes.
So in my opinion, I'm like, why would you throw the ball?
Yeah.
I mean, if you got, like, for instance, Devontae Booker, the guy can run and he can catch and he can pass. So it's like in that element, if I'm handing him the ball and he's getting 6 yards to carry, why in the heck would I pass the ball, right? And if we are in the third down situation, 3rd and 7, 3rd and manageable, okay, let me just throw this quick out route and then, which whatever, get to this sticks, catch it, cool, let's prolong it, let's run. So I get it, the game management, run game, we have a dominant offensive line. So, I mean, shoot, it makes sense. I mean, we had John White when I first got here. I mean, the dude broke records like John White. And in the year where we didn't have and I'm not dissing nobody, where we didn't have the highest production in the running game, that's where the receiving, like for the 2013 year when I got injured, like Drez had 1,000, Fitz had like 500, AD had like 500. So the passing game increased. So you're right. When it comes to the horses that we had, I'm running that dang pill too. Every dang play. I'm running with Devontae Booker the whole time. So I agree with you on all that. Literally every route, I agree with you on that. Selfishly, I would love to have had 100 yards every game. Yeah. But let's just be honest. Like, if you can throw it to Devontae Booker on a quick swing route, he takes it 15, 20. Like, why the heck would I push the ball downfield, right, and take that risk, right? And so, no, that makes total sense. What you said, it's a tough thing. And so, when you're talking about Michigan, Bryce Underwood. I like Bryce Underwood. I just feel like he's going to – the receivers, because Andrew Marsh, I coached him when he was a young kid at like 12, 13 years old. So I'm familiar with Andrew Marsh. I'm rooting for him 1,000%. I remember when he was getting ready to pick from Washington, USC, and Michigan. Like, I was in those conversations with him. So I want him to get 1,000 yards selfishly, but I also know it's going to be tough, right? Well, I say all that to say the misconception, I get it from the outside in, but then again, it's like, shoot, we had some dogs back there running that ball. So it's kind of hard to kind of do, a dominant passing game with a dominant running back as I've had in my years.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also just when you're winning football games, it's kind of a misnomer with the run-pass ratio. People always are looking at 50-40, 50 55-45. Like, what is the run-pass ratio? Well, right. If you're winning games, if you're going to conference championships, you're not going to be passing the football more than you're running it. It's just as simple as that, regardless of your identity, regardless of your philosophy. If you are leading in the game, you're going to be running the clock and running the football. That's right. Kind of the MO there, that a lot of people look at those, right? They look at those run-pass ratios a little too literally when there's a lot more context therein. I think that you look at Kevin McGivern, he's probably more of like a 55-45 pass rush guy in his history. That's not a guarantee that that's going to be the same at Utah, especially if they come out and start winning a bunch of games and have a really good offensive line. They may be running that damn football. So we'll see how that plays out. I want to ask you, Gooby, a guy who you went up against Morgan Scalley on the defensive side of the football, of course, in practices and otherwise for a long time. And he's a guy who is very involved on the defensive side of the football, where if you are watching him during the course of a play, during the course of a pre-snap, it sometimes looks like Morgan's going to run out onto the field, right? Like he is heavily involved right up until the snap. Sometimes actually isn't giving the final signal or the final play call until the quarterback is under center, right? He's notorious for waiting last second in that regard and being very much a part of that 11-man unit on the defensive side of the football. Yeah. How do you see him adjusting from being so ravenous on the sideline and so involved to now being a guy who has to oversee every asset, every facet of the football game in the football program? It's gotta be a little bit of a different view that we get of Morgan Scalley on the sideline on Saturdays.
Yeah, that's going to be a different. But the beautiful thing is the way he is on the defensive end, he can also implement that on the offensive end too, kind of like giving it a little spark, the infectious spirit that he has. So I can see it may be tough. He probably still going to be in the same mode as far as doing the same thing, then he's gonna be like, oh shoot, I gotta take it back. I'm in my head coach mode. So I think that probably will be a struggle for him. I know for me, like I'm not coaching at his level, but for me as a when I'm coaching, like I'm always passionate about that, and sometimes like I hold myself back, like oh shoot, I'm not in that position to where I'm that person anymore. So I can see that could probably be a big adjustment for him, but the passion and energy is still going to be there. I think the defense is second nature to him. I think this is going to be cool because now he gets to see our offensive end a little bit more and probably be able to contribute more input to see where he maybe sees something lacking and where he's like, all right, I think maybe guys, we should do this here than what he could have done before. Because before he's just locked in straight on defense. Like, okay, what are my guys doing when we get off the field? I'm coaching them to talk about the next drill. But now he's, overall, going to be able to have his input in everything. So that could be a good thing. That could be a good thing for him. So it's going to be interesting to see his new maturation of what he's going to be doing as a coach.
I love it because it's personal to him. And I don't think you can measure what that actually does. I was trying to explain to people when Jim Harbaugh took over at Michigan and some things when they weren't going right, I kept saying, no, it's a matter of when, not if, because he's going to eat, sleep, and breathe this. It's different when it's personal. How much of an advantage do you think that is for Utah's program when it comes to problem solving, the involvement of him as a head coach, and then the acceleration of the program through the era, not just year number one?
Dude, I am so grateful that it was Scally that got the position because one of the biggest gripes that I get from a lot of like former athletes, like from my friends and their collegiate teams, is like, man, when they go back to their school, they don't feel the same love. They don't feel like it's their school that they went to. And so when it comes to Utah, I feel like it's the same school that I went to because Coach Scally, because all the coaches, even though many have departed and went elsewhere, I still feel it because Coach Scally and the culture that he's keeping and also building on. And so when it comes to that, it feels good for me. I love it. I think that the way Coach, man, if anybody had like 5 minutes with Coach Scally, man, they would freaking love him, even 1 minute, just because of the type of person he is. And so, like, there's no better person to be leading this, and I'm super excited for his first year. I don't think that, man, if you look at the bowl game, it was just a different energy, right? It was an energy that he brought. Not saying it was, like, not great before, but I'm just saying he took the energy and elevated even more with all the pressure, with all the stuff going on, with all this, the scrutiny that came with it. And he just elevated. So that's what I love. It's always good to have a Utah man through and through. And so I love it for him. I love it for it. Absolutely. I just know the program's in good hands.
You mentioned having, that feel of the program that you left, you come back and have it. I wonder, with Morgan Scally being a Utah player, a Salt Lake City kid, and the staff that he's putting around him, right? You look at Luther Ellis, Colton Swan, all of these guys have ties to the University of Utah, where as much as we got to love Kyle, he was a BYU guy. He wore BYU blue, right? That was kind of a little part of that identity as well. How does it land on you knowing that Utah now is led by a Utah man and he's surrounding himself with guys who are all in that regard?
Yeah, man, it's cool. It's definitely cool. And it's weird because, like, with Coach Witt, like, you wouldn't have known that he was a BYU guy.
Nope.
He loves Utah, man. Like, he believes it. There's so many opportunities that Coach Witt could have left and he didn't, for bigger paying jobs, for bigger names, and he just didn't, So even though he is BYU previously, I always felt like, he truly wants to wear red. But no, with Scally, man, it's a beautiful thing. Like, I watched the old interviews when he was talking about, I hate BYU, or it was a video that they always play.
Yep.
And it's like, I hate those guys.
Yep.
And, like, just see his face and his passion, like, it's contagious. And that he was birthed into it. Like, it's weird. It's like, man, like for instance, like Bane, like, he was like, man, I was born in the dark. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like Scally, he was born a youth. So, like, this is something that he's going to take tremendous pride in. He's going to take care of it as his baby and making sure that it gets to, because he's seen it from the Alex Smith years to before to everything. He's seen everything. So he wants it to be a team that is going to be talked about like the 04s or the 08s, especially under his helm. So yeah. I'm excited, man.
Well, the number one thing with him is he treats people like people. He doesn't treat them like things. I think that was evident from day one that I ever met him, got to know him, was always impressed by him. was a fan of him as a person, as a player, now as a coach, all of that. But take me through it, whether it was your experience or experiences that you've also heard from other players. And look, I've worked in professional sports and major pro sports for a majority of my career, and I try to explain to people that have never been at those levels, you don't know what that moment is like when it really hits you that you're a thing and that the human part is gone, and you don't know what it's like to have someone toss you aside or talk about you or to you in a non-human way when this business comes along. How do you really, or how would you describe it to somebody who's never experienced that, and how it changes the player as a person? Because I've had NBA players tell me about it, Major League players tell me about it. What about whether it's your experience or guys in the game of football?
Man, I've been fortunate. I had great coaches like Coach Rod. I love Coach Rod to death. There's nothing that nobody can say to me about Coach Rod that's negative, because the impact that he's had on me. Like when I got injured my freshman year, and I was devastated. Like, because obviously there was big regards. I'm coming in as a big recruit. I'm supposed to be doing all this, and then I get hurt, and I was devastated. And I don't know if I'm supposed to share it, but like I was thinking about leaving. Like as far as like not playing football, because like my mindset, I was depressed because I couldn't play football anymore. And so Coach Rod took me in, and like during that fall camp when I was away from football, where I couldn't be by my teammates, etc., he allowed me to stay with him in his basement, to where like because the house have like another room down there. Like I stayed with Coach Rod, man, and how much love he showed me in regards to like, man, I'm here for you, man. You're not going to be here like alone suffering through this. I got you, right? And he held true what he said to me when he was recruiting me out of California. So like, man, I'm forever indebted, because when you get injured, sometimes you don't feel like you're part of the team, because everybody's at practice, you're not. And so having those type of people around you, like Coach Rod was for me. Even when I got hurt the second time, like Travis Wilson, he was there for me. Like when he had his brain situation, like we were both together. Like that's how we were glued together so much. Like one of my best friends, Drez, and all of them, like, when you're going through those moments, having teammates and coaches there to like continue pouring into you as if you never were injured or never was not quote unquote part of the team, because, various situations like, injury or whatever, like having those is so key, because man, I've seen from other like programs, people it can go bad instantly. So I'm just grateful I had great people around me, and that all starts from the top, as far as like the coaches. The thing that I mentioned with Coach Scally, like the leadership development, ensuring that the leaders of the team always make sure and looked out for the other players, just to make sure if they're homesick, treat them with love, make sure that they don't feel homesick anymore. So it's evident. I personally don't have a negative experience, because all my negative experiences had positive remarks because of the impact that they had, because of how they, gave me love in those darkest moments. So that's why I'm forever indebted.
Well, and you've heard from others, though. Not that you have to share those stories. I'm just saying you've definitely known others who have experienced something different.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Gooby, not going to put you on the spot with it right now. We're going to wait until you see some football, and then we're going to ask you a bunch about this wide receiver room. A bunch of new faces, Ricky Johnson, Braden Pagan, Kyrie Scholes, but quite a bit of returning talent for Utah as well, and Creed Whittemore and Larry Simmons and Merriweather and Dadrian Zipper. It's a wide receiver room that I'm going to use you during the season. During this show and during my pregame show, we're going to get Kenneth's read on the wide receiver room as it comes together, all right?
Man, let's do it. I'm super hyped about that group. You can't tell me nothing different. I'm super hyped. Like all the stuff I've been reading, the little clips and stuff like that, I'm pumped. So whenever that time comes, just know, hey, Coach Bump, hey, shout out to Coach Bump, man.
Yep.
Like, come on, man. So I'm excited, man. This is going to be a good year for him. We can definitely talk about that later, but super excited for those guys.
Yeah, Bumpus has got a lot of bodies to work with. We'll analyze it as it goes, and we'll get Gooby on right after week 1, and we'll discuss how it looked.
Sounds good.
Thanks, player.
Let's do it.
Always appreciate his time. He is one of the best to do it at Utah at the wide receiver position. Kenneth Gooby Scott, and longtime friend of the program. Fun guy.
Yeah. I listen to his music right before I work out.
I love that.
Yeah.
Let's.
When I'm doing the stretches, then I listen to The Drive.
There you go.
Checketts.
I was going to say, you better have that logged in.
Yeah, that's always great. That always covers, it does really, really well. The stretches and then the walking at the end. But when it comes to the lifting, there's some different parts and podcasts I'll listen to, and Gooby's music is right out the gate.
Wherever you happen to listen, Spotify, Apple. Just search The Drive with Spence Checketts. Rate, review, subscribe. It does help out the show. And get all of our stuff up at ESPN700sports.com as well. Kenneth Scott, brought to you by our friends at Advanced Windows. Visit advancedwindows.com. The last month of their summer special, $2,500 off when you get 10 windows or more. If you don't need 10 windows, maybe you got a smaller project you got to get taken care of, they'll prorate those. So it's Advanced Windows at advancedwindows.com. And they'll prorate that deal for you so you can get in on it, whether you're getting the 10 windows or not. It's Nate Orchard, it's Jake Weber, it's our friends over there at Advanced Windows celebrating 40 years in business here in the market. That's 40 years they're going on at Advanced Window Products. Give them a call and schedule a consultation, or get them there to get some measurements and get this project going. AdvancedWindows.com. Back on the other side, our Utah Uinta Golf PGA Tour leaderboard update. Paul Pugmire stops by the show of Utah Golf Radio. Coach Guy Holiday still to come, and we'll give you a little today's best after the drive today. Bill Riley hosted the midday show. If you missed any of that, you'll hear it coming your way this afternoon on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back. Drive Time on ESPN 700 rolls along on this Friday afternoon. Porter Larson, Tony Parks taking you through it. Spence will be back with you on a Monday edition of The Drive. But as we do each and every Friday, it's time for our Uinta Golf PGA Tour leaderboard update. We'll get to the latest in the BMW Championship, which is phase 2 of our playoff in the FedEx Cup. Talk a little Utah golf and locals as well with our guy, Paul Pugs. What's up, partner?
Hey, I'm just digging the tunes, man.
Yeah, I usually bring you in with some Eagles, but with Spence out, I kind of commandeer the music and the aux chord, if you will. So a little Marty Robbins for you, if that's okay.
Hey, I was working. I
love it. All right, Paul. First off, let's start here. We'll get into the BMW Championship and what's going on tour, but give us the week in local golf and what's going on. We don't have our guy Tony Finau. He didn't qualify. None of our local U-Pots, if you will, are in the FedEx Cup Championship. So let's zero in on the home front before we get into that.
Yeah, sure. So the biggest U-Pot news is Zach Blair. So Zach is in the remarkable and unusual position of having a pathway to the PGA Tour through 2 different tour routes. He can make it through being in the top 20 on the Korn Ferry Tour, and he's in the mix on that. He's outside the top 20 right now, but he's in the mix. And he also is within shouting distance of the top 100 on the PGA Tour, again, outside but in the mix. And so he is in the situation where for the next 2 months, for the next 7-8 weeks, Zach will get to choose, do I play in a PGA Tour event and pursue those points, or do I play in a Korn Ferry event and pursue those points? Either one has the potential to end up in the same place, and that is being on the PGA Tour with full status. But it is remarkable that he's in that situation, and it makes for some very interesting and I think very difficult decisions being made week to week about how he gets from here to there.
It's pretty cool watching the year he's had. He's been pretty successful, but I'm going to ask, do you know off the top of your head where he is on the official world golf ranking?
World golf rankings, no. That doesn't play into the calculations for being in getting tour status. But you're right; it is really an interesting question. The reason I ask, Paul, I know it doesn't have an official bearing in those regards. I like the OWGR because it brings everyone in and kind of weighs the events and the tournaments played. The reason I ask is because as of today, Zach Blair has moved into 136 on the official world golf ranking, one spot ahead of Tony Finau. So, yep.
If you would have told me that 2 years ago, I would have called you crazy. But we're now at a place where Zach Blair might be the premier golfer in this state at the moment, and part of that has to do with what I'd say is a little bit of a flat spell from Tony Finau over the last couple of years.
Absolutely a flat spell from Tony, and I'm working with his people to get Tony on the show next week to talk about that. Tony's on a family vacation this week and not available, but in many ways it would revisit the junior golf days for these two players in Utah when Zach was absolutely the big gun in the room, and Tony, a couple years younger, was trying to figure out a way to keep up with and catch Zach. We might be getting back to that, but great catch. I'm looking at the world golf rankings now, and you are so right. That is a lot of fun.
Who is the best player people are not talking about right now that you think has really started to surge and has caught your attention?
Oh, my land, Chris Gotterup. If you're not watching Gotterup, you're missing things.
What is it about his game? What is it about that? I mean, not why he's overlooked, but what it is you're seeing from him that, has really impressed you most.
He's a throwback to great players of the past in a very particular and significant way. His swing is not classic. It's not trying to mirror or be a version of Adam Scott. And so many swings are. So many swings are very manufactured, and they go from position 1 to 2 to 3, and the players will talk about in that, well, say my P4, which is position 4, is out of whack. Well, Goddard is athletic and artistic, and he is largely self-taught. He's had some help along the way, but it is not a classic move. It is very athletic. It is very powerful. He was born with a body that is well suited for it, but doesn't that apply in all of athletics? I mean, you can't just be a linebacker because you want to. You've got to have the right body. and he goes out there and he makes an athletic move at it, and he plays golf. He doesn't play golf shot. He plays golf, and he plays the course. And I think he's engaging to watch, very powerful, creative, and he's been winning. He's got 3 wins this year, and he's in the mix this week again at Belle Reve in St. Louis. I think Goddard up. I just can't take my eyes off him.
And you mentioned he's in the mix at Belle Reve. He is 9 under through the first 2 rounds. He is in the clubhouse, a 64 and a 67, good enough to tie him for 4th place. J.J. Spawn at 10 under, Wyndham Clark and Gary Woodland currently at 11 under, and Wyndham still with a few holes to play, so he could potentially build on that one. What's caught your eye on day 2, Paul, of the BMW Championship?
Well, the first thing is that the leaderboard, the first 3 players on the leaderboard, Gary Woodland, Wyndham Clark, J.J. Spawn, you just noted them, they all share something. We all know what it is. They are all U.S. Open champs.
Yeah.
It's no accident that when we get to this part of the season, when we get to this part of the tournaments and who's left, and when we are on a course like Belle Reve that has been the host to major championships, most recently the PGA Championship that Brooks Koepka won, but historically a venue that matters. We add all that up, it's no accident that the top 3 players on the leaderboard are all U.S. Open champs, and the one right below him, Chris Goddard. I love that about what's going on. Belle Reve is a fascinating track. It actually gets a lot of grief for being unimaginative, too many dogleg left par 4s, things like that. People say that. But the reality is, when major events have gone to Belle Reve, they have produced historically significant champions. Gary Player completed his Grand Slam, winning the U.S. Open at Belle Reve. Brooks Koepka winning the PGA at Belle Reve says straight up, greatest shot I ever hit in my life was a 4-iron on Sunday on number 16, the par 3, 238 yards to 4 feet. He said, I'd give all the money back if I could have that feeling on that shot the rest of my life. Belle Reve stands up when it's put under major pressure, and I love that it's producing major champions at the top of the leaderboard right now.
Which tournament do you look forward to most outside of the majors, and especially when you get to this back half of the year?
Well, I'm a homeboy. I want to go to Black Desert.
That's the right answer.
There you go.
To the Bank of Utah Championship. There are others. I mean, there are other courses that are just so great. How do you not love the Farmers at Torrey Pines? How do you not love AT&T at Pebble Beach? How do you not love the Genesis at Riviera? Muirfield Village when they go to the Memorial at Jack's course. Of course, Arnie's tournament when they go there to Bay Hill. And you know what? Those all share are great venues. And I am very attracted to a great venue.
Since you brought up the Black Desert, that is a tournament that's only about a month and a half away, of course, in October down there in southern Utah. Give me an idea what you're hearing on that course and that tournament from maybe the camps around some of the bigger players, right? I know that during the first couple of years, they've had a little bit of a struggle trying to get some of the premier players on tour down there, not just because of the location out there in the remote desert, but also because of the timing, right? In October, there's a lot of guys that maybe aren't playing every tournament and aren't playing every week or competing with a different tournament elsewhere. Give us an idea of what you suspect the lineup to look like down there at Black Desert. It's a $6 million purse this year.
The place to start this discussion is looking at the FedEx points system. For this year, it'll change in 2027. We don't know exactly how yet, but we all know the tour is under a season of change. But for this year, it's in the FedEx Fall Series or FedEx Fall. And that's a 7-tournament series for players who are looking to improve their FedEx Cup points status. Generally, it will be players outside of the top 50 because the 50 already have that premium status locked up. And so then it's players either trying to protect or break into the top 100. That's the next big break that really matters. And then there are breaks after that at 110 and 125 that matter. And so you look at those point system, the point standings going into the tournament registration cutoff, which is always the Friday 5 o'clock Eastern time before the tournament. And look at where the players' points are there, and you can kind of predict who's going to come. In most cases, not in all cases, every once in a while there will be somebody who sits out for a reason, but what's been fun is lately, especially last year, you started to get players who already had status who came to Black Desert because they heard how well they were treated by the resort,
right?
And what a good time that the players and their families had. And so Jason Day, he had no reason to show up last year. He just said he wanted to, and he also was wanting to test some new clubs before he put them into play the next year. And he said, I just decided I wanted to do this test at Black Desert. It looked really fun. So, that's a pretty positive statement to get from somebody of the stature of Jason Day. And so, but you look at these players, back to the point system, and it's players who are wanting to either protect top 100 status or get into top 100 status. And that starts to speak to our guy, Tony Finau, who is right on that bubble. And there's a couple things we know. The math is really simple and clear. If you stand still, they're going to move past you. So you have to be playing in tournaments and getting points, which means making the cut. And so we're going to be watching this very closely with Tony when he gets back from his family vacation and what he does with the 7 tournaments in FedEx Fall.
Yeah.
Patrick Fishburne, he needs to go get points. Zach Blair, he needs to go get points. So we're going to see those guys playing a lot.
That'll be exciting to see. And yeah, my hope is that not just for the points, but also from word of mouth, guys that have been to the golf course and been to the resort, telling their friends on tour about it so we can see some of the premier golfers in the world at Black Desert. That would be a lot of fun. All right, Paul, before we get a final You Went to Golf leaderboard update on the way out, looking at the leaderboard at the BMW Championship, and we mentioned it a few minutes ago, Gary Woodland, Wyndham Clark, J.J. Spawn up at the top, all Americans, and of course U.S. Open champs. And then you got to scroll quite a ways down to find the defending champ and the current leader. His name is Scotty Scheffler. But Paul, after a lackluster Thursday, he's had a really, really good day. He's the big mover on this Friday from 44th up to 24th today. He is now 3 under. Is that good enough to have him in consideration over the weekend? I know you usually say like 5 or 6 shots back. He's currently 8 back, but he's also Scotty Scheffler. So I wonder if that's good enough to get him at least in the conversation for the weekend.
Well, a couple things are at play here. First of all, is Scotty going to have 2 bad days in a row, 3 bad days in a row?
No.
Do any of us believe that?
No, not usually.
Not for a minute. No. And so it's kind of on script. Okay, Scotty had a rough day yesterday. All right, golf is hard. But he's back making a move now. The problem with covering, so he's at -3. The problem with covering the 7 shots to get to the 8 shots to get to -11. Now Woodland and Clark are both at -11. Isn't as much the number of strokes; it's the number and quality of people in between him and the leaderboard. What has to happen for him to be in the mix Sunday is he has to make up those strokes, those 8 strokes, totally capable of that, but everybody else has to stand still.
Right.
And somebody will stand still, somebody will lose ground, but are all 23 of them going to stand still? I think not.
Well,
and just too many and too high a quality of players.
Yeah, the number one, guys that are shooting 11 under, they're probably going to up that a little bit throughout the course of the weekend. But also, this is a par 70 course, right? So usually on tour, I would say most often you're seeing a 71 or a 72 par course. You got just a few less shots to work with over the course of the weekend. It's maybe 3 or 4 less strokes that you even have to make up at Bellerive.
Very, very true. Plus, we can expect, one of the reasons these are kind of low scores for Bellerive, and one of the reasons they are such is because it's been moist there, and they're going to turn off the irrigation system because it's been raining a little, and the course will firm up, and that will make it harder. Always, that's a major variable in figuring out how a golf course plays. The other thing is Scotty. The question is, what does he need to do? And the answer is not much. He is no doubt going to be qualifying to move on to the top 30 and go to East Lake. And at East Lake, very much to their credit, the PGA Tour has taken one small step towards actually living up to the word playoffs. And going into East Lake, everybody will start at 0, and the winner at East Lake is the winner of the Tour Championship. Now, I just long for a true playoffs where you use the regular season points to get into the first playoff event, into the top 70. And what I wish from there is that was the end of the regular season points, and that from there we would have taken the top 50 that week to go on to the next step. And from there, we take the top 30 that week to move on. A real playoffs rather than letting the regular season carry forward. If we let the regular season carry forward, the 16-1 Patriots would have won the Super Bowl because they had that undefeated regular season. Right. And I just think that's folly. I would love a real playoffs where people have to show up not only in person and play tournaments. There's been more than once when highly ranked players skip playoff events and they still move on. I think that's just ridiculous. And but then once you're there, you got to play well or you don't move on, which is the way playoffs are supposed to work. So but they are doing it at least for the last step, at least for East Lake, and so hats off for that one step. Scotty will get himself to East Lake. Everybody's going to start at 0. We're going to play 72 holes and find out who the winner is.
I think I'm with you on that. I'd like to have a little bit more of a semblance of a playoff during the playoffs, but regardless, as you mentioned, we're going to see some of the best golfers in the world next week at the PGA Tour Championship. But This week, of course, the BMW Championship getting over and out of the way. Paul, appreciate your time as always. We'll set you loose and hope you have a good weekend. But first, let us know what's to come on a Saturday edition of Utah Golf Radio.
So this past week, something really historically significant happened in Utah golf. Kihei Akina from Brigham Young University was selected for the Walker Cup team. It is the highest honor that can be given to an amateur player. And Kihei went out and earned it and got a spot on the Walker Cup team. We're going to be talking about that.
Love that, Paul. 8 to 10 a.m. right here on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, and the Utah Golf Radio Network. Appreciate your time, Paul.
Thank you so much.
Your PGA Tour leaderboard update brought to you by Uinta Golf. Join Uinta Golf by Worldwide Golf Shops today for the latest deals on Ping, Titleist, TaylorMade, Callaway, Mizuno, and more. They've got club fitting technology, golf simulators, indoor hitting bays, full-service club repair and re-gripping, an indoor putting green, club fitting technology, and experienced service professionals serving Utah golfers since 1971. It is Uinta Golf and uintagolf.com. Gary Woodland in the clubhouse at 11 under. He went 64 and 65 in his first 2 rounds at the BMW Championship. Wyndham Clark also at 11 under, but as of this moment, he's still got a couple holes to play, could maybe find himself in the clubhouse with a solo lead. J.J. Spawn at 10 under and by himself in third place after a 64 and a 66 over the weekend. And then it's Sungjae Im, Chris Gotterup at 9 under, Patrick Cantlay and Michael Thorbjornsen at 8 under, Colin Morikawa, Russell Henley, Maverick McNeely, and Rory McIlroy in there at 7 under. And the big movers of the day, one Victor Hovland goes from 37th to 12th place. 7 under today. He shot a 63. And Scotty Scheffler, he shot a 5 under today, a 65 to move him up into the top 25 and at least keep him in the conversation. 8 shots is a lot to make up, especially on this course and especially once you're in the PGA playoff. You're playing against the best players in the world. Making up 8 shots is, not quite likely, but that is Scotty Scheffler. So we'll at least leave the possibility of it open. Back to some college football talk on the other side. We're going to welcome in Coach Guy Holliday, former Utes, former BYU, and otherwise wide receiver coach. And we'll get with him on the latest in the NCAA off-season college football chaos and otherwise. This golf segment brought to you by our friends at Stansbury Park. If you haven't played Stansbury Park Golf Course yet, what are you doing this weekend? Head out there. Stansbury Park Golf Course. Water on almost every hole, greens that roll true, and a layout that'll keep you focused and fired up. And you can play a full round without spending your budget. No long waits, no overpriced green fees, just pure golf. 18 holes for only $45 on weekdays and $55 on the weekends. Right off I-80, super easy to get to, and a great reason to explore Tooele County. Book your tee time now at stansburypark.gov/golf course. That's stansburypark.gov/golf course. Sponsored by Tooele County. Back on the other side, the drive continues, talking some college football on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. 4 o'clock hour of The Drive. Rolling along here on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Big thanks to you for joining us on this Friday afternoon. It's myself, Porter Larson. That guy, Tony Parks, sitting across from me. Spence will be back with you on a Monday. And we'll be within a couple weeks of Utah football, kicking off against the Idaho Vandals up at Rice-Eccles Stadium September 3rd. I'll have the pregame show for you about 3 o'clock, kickoff at 7. That guy, Tony Parks, will be on the PA at the stadium. So you'll hear from all of us on that afternoon.
Hearing you on the up, they go 13 days. I'm like, right.
It's close.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's close. And
I'm fired up, man.
It's been quite the offseason here in Salt Lake, so we're ready for football. We're ready for kickoff. But to cover all of it, maybe talk some wide receivers, talk some Utah football, and maybe some big BYU and Big 12 at large. He is the former wide receiver coach at both of those schools and elsewhere, Coach Guy Holliday. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
Doing well. We appreciate your time as we always do. Always good to catch up with you. And usually when you're on the station, that means football is at least near, and that it is 13 days away from Utah football kickoff. I want to first get your read on exactly that. Utah in a new era under Morgan Scalley. Kyle Whittingham lives in Ann Arbor now, and it's been quite the offseason. What are your expectations of a Utah football team who the first time, Guy, in 2.5, almost 3 decades, the first time they're really going under a complete new look, under a new head coach and a bunch of new guys on staff?
Well, I think it's going to be twofold as far as the results. I think it's going to depend on how good the offensive line is. I mean, that's going to be vital. How much depth they have at offensive line, because they're young, so you're going to have some injuries. Knock on wood that you don't. And then the defensive tackle position. Because not at any time in my knowing of Utah football and watching Utah football, which was long before I came to Utah, or even to the state of Utah, defense has been the trademark. And I think that stopping the run is where it all starts. And they just weren't as good as they had been in the past. I mean, let's be honest, they just weren't good at all towards the end of the season. So you got to strengthen up that. You build every team from the inside out. My experience, when you change coaches and the coach comes from within, normally the first year, I don't think you're going to see a drop-off, because players are going to be bought in, and if they start early, I think they'll be fine. Start fast early. All the players will be bought in, and Morgan is really good about relationships. And we know that from a defensive standpoint, very structured, very organized, doesn't waste time. He'll get in and out. He's a big family person. Utah is a family. So I think from carrying that over, he learned from 2 pretty good head coaches, or 3. I mean, if you go back to prior to Urban Meyer, and then you have Kyle Whittingham, and, of course, the legendary coach who everybody knows at Utah. When you look at that and you have those 3 guys who actually mentored Morgan, those are pretty good guys. Of course, Coach McBride, I'm sorry I didn't even mention his name, but Coach McBride's style is a little bit different. We know Urban is a huge grinder and just believes in talent. And, he, for whatever reason, he's not one that stayed any place a long time. And then you have Witt, who was there freaking 30 years total about, or a little bit more. And Witt's all about toughness, hardcore. We're going to punch him in the mouth. So I'm sure you'll see, just listen to Morgan's first press conference, was the first thing he said, we're going to rip your face off. So you can expect to see that physicality. But information I'm getting out and have heard that the receiver room is deep. The quarterbacks look good, and the running backs, I think Utah has always had a bevy of running backs. And so, it's all going to come down to 5 guys up front on offense. And like I said, I think most of the defense that returns, I hear the linebackers are deep now and performing well. I think it's going to come down to the front 4.
I always think it's so interesting watching a new head coach in any situation, because one thing people always forget about is the element of managing a staff. And I have no doubts that Morgan has obviously had a ton of experience in climbing the ladder and then also being in a great culture to take over and do a nice job at head coach. But if you're one of his staff members in this situation, whether recently promoted and to a place that, you've been excited about with this new opportunity, what are the key things you want to see from that group to make life easier on him, better on him, and help the team be more successful?
Well, they got to carry the load. Morgan's first-year head coach. And one thing that I don't think people realize, in college, the demands on a head coach is far more different than the NFL. Morgan's and he's a personable human being. So, unlike his predecessor, Witt didn't really, he wasn't too worried about the alumni and appeasing people. Witt was just about winning games. Morgan's going to take a different approach. I'm fairly confident in watching him. He's going to be more open with the press, more open with alumni. And he's going to spread himself a little bit more than per se Kyle Whittingham did. And Morgan's a recruiter. By nature, he's an outstanding recruiter. He's relentless. So he'll be doing that. So the offensive and defensive staffs have got to come together as one and then just carry him for a little bit. And when I say carry him, I mean take the pressure off of him where he feels really comfortable with what's going on both sides of the ball.
Guy, I want to ask you about a little conversation we've been having about Morgan and Kyle. Obviously, plenty of parallels. One of the situations where I can see a little bit of a contrast, and maybe a welcome contrast for Utah fans, is Morgan has always been a little bit less risk averse, right? He's a guy who likes to blitz a lot. I think sometimes he would blitz a little too much for Kyle's liking, and you could see that sometimes on the sideline. And now Morgan has the opportunity to oversee the offensive side of the football as well. Do you think Utah's offense, although it's been productive, really productive over the last decade or so, it also has been, I don't want to say predictable, but you kind of know what you're going to get, right? I wonder if with Morgan on the offensive side of the football, you see and are allowed a little bit more creativity, although I want to put the caveat on that. Jason Beck and Kyle Whittingham's offense last year was among the most creative I think I've ever seen.
I think Morgan is probably more in tune with what's with offensive football from a standpoint. He knows what hurts his defense, and that's how I think he will approach a lot of things. He knows that different gadgets, different 4 out to 1. Him and I have had discussions when I was there, and he would draw up pass plays, and he would say, hey, this is what hurts us. What do you think about this? And so he's very astute on learning the entire game. That's what I've always been impressed about Morgan. I mean, and very intelligent. So I would anticipate that the offense will be, as you would say, less predictable. I think Kyle Whittingham's nature, even if he didn't say run the damn ball, you just felt that, and that's his presence. He was Kyle Whittingham was a guy, if you got in a bar fight, you want Kyle Whittingham with you, and that's how he coached. Let's be honest, very physical, and all of his teams were always physical. If you talk to anybody from the Pac-12, and I'm sure in the Big 12, they always tell you got to be prepared to be physical against Utah. I don't think that changes, but I do think Morgan will open up the ropes a little bit and let it be a little bit more creative, which Witt always started out that way. But Witt, by nature, is a defensive person. So if you went through a bad spell on offense, we're going to go back right to what made us really good, which offensive football, it takes time. You just don't, even now, coming out of spring football and in summer camp, they don't know what they have because they're playing against the same people every day. So you really won't know what you have until you get into about game 3, and you'll have a really good feeling on where your football team is. What are you good at offensively? I thought in my time there, we got a little too predictable in who we were going to throw the ball to, trying to force the ball into certain players. That's just not my philosophy. I think it's harder to defend when you put 11 good players on the field, and from a skill asset, you take what the defense is giving you. You don't force the ball or move this player around just to throw him the ball, because that takes away from and a lot of head coaches, or a lot of coaches in general, doesn't realize that we always talk about team, but sometimes you can destroy your mentality of your team by a perceived favoritism of a player, if that makes sense. And so I think Morgan realized that because he's really in tune with players, and I think he'll give that leeway to the coaches.
Yeah, that was something I was asked when helping Michigan fans understand about Kyle Whittingham, about like, okay, what if you had a drawback? Because obviously I'm big on Whit, I'm big on his entire staff, and I think the University of Michigan's in good hands with a guy like this. But they said, okay, well, what would be your knocks on him if you had any? I thought, I never felt like the passing game ever reached elite level, or it had something that was reliable enough, consistently enough. And so as you've evaluated it, and I know it's multifaceted, multivariable, got it, but was that, I guess, the ingredient that really kept Utah football from having what they wanted in terms of more of a consistent threat with that pass game during that era?
No, and I think that's fair. I think that's a fair criticism. I know I thought the best overall passing game, and I know Utah fans will kill me, but I thought A-Rod had a really good concept of what it took to throw the football. I think Troy Taylor's offense, who I also worked under, was more, let's say, college, air raid, win you a lot of games, can throw the ball around, but you also got to have players that fit that mode. And then I think when you went to Ludd, you became and being a former tight end, you became a very tight end-based offense. And as you saw when Brant Kesey got hurt, it changes your offense. And so I think the one criticism you could say of my era there is maybe we didn't develop enough playmakers. And then I would go back to say maybe we didn't give enough playmakers an opportunity to develop, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And so I think that's a fair criticism. But let's make no mistake about it. What Whit does and what he believes in is Big Ten football through and through. It is it's how they play the game, or have in the past. Obviously, when you insert what Ohio State does now, what Oregon does, it's a little bit less of that type of football game. But come November, and they remember what you do in November, it gets cold in the Midwest, and so you got to be able to run the football.
Guy, you've been part of multiple locker rooms. You've been part of locker room transitions, and have been hired, been let go, all of the above. You've gone through.
Fired. I've done it all.
Yeah, you've gone through all of it in the coaching world. Have you ever seen a off-season coaching news cycle like the one we've seen in this market over the last year? Not only Kyle taking the biggest job in arguably college football, but also Kalani courting with Penn State. You go up and down the list. Bronco, of course, is still in business up in Logan, and now the University of Utah is suing Kyle's brother Freddie for a breach of contract, and players that he recruited while he was here are now playing there. It's been a complete whirlwind and quite a back and forth roller coaster to cover. From a coaching perspective, have you ever seen anything like this zeroed in on our market?
Not in one state, not as you said, in one market. I think, And I've been around in some states. Obviously, I worked in Michigan, and when Saban left Michigan State, I mean, that was a big deal. Obviously, when Carr left Michigan, big deal, but never at multiple programs that I've seen. And being in the SEC, you see a lot. You see a lot of turnover. You see it happen quickly, and you always see drama, always. But this is different. So let's start with BYU. That's impressive that they found a way to keep Kalani. What is obvious to me is that, and if you know their AD, he's a basketball guy. He was when I was there. That's his love. That's his passion. And so what's obvious to me is that whether it's been said outright or not, Kalani feels cheated. Maybe he doesn't feel like the AD is upholding his end on raising the money for the NIL. Because let's be honest, relationships matter. We get that. Money matters more to 90% of the people out there. So I think that situation will take care of itself. I don't think it's a distraction to the players. I think Kalani coming out and saying that is a way of him galvanizing his fan base behind him. Because at the end of the day, I can tell you at least 50%, if not 75% of the jobs, there's always conflicts between the administration and the head basketball coach, because you're viewing yourself as the revenue maker. And why can't I have this? Why aren't we doing this? This is what we've accomplished. And so him staying at BYU is, I think, that was a tremendous keep for BYU. But now you got to step up. And whatever was promised, I have no idea. I'm not there. I haven't talked to anyone there. And I know just as many people there as I do at Utah. You got to fix that, because you paid him a lot of money to stay, and you back staff salary. So now you got to do everything you can to help make him successful. I think that's vital.
Yeah. I think that's what I wanted to ask too, is like, you've been around so many different places. You've seen a number of different things. One thing I would want that to get settled and handled correctly. I don't know all the backstory, but what I do know is I get the sense, at least, that it could be a very difficult situation if there's misalignment based on commitment along with expectation, especially if you're talking AD and coach. Yeah.
And I can tell you this as a coach, as long as you're winning, the ball is in your court. Fans will always side with their head coach, as long as you keep them on their side. And Kalani him and Morgan are very similar in that they appreciate the fan base. And so I think they do a lot of things to appeal to the fan base, which at the end of the day, that's who keeps your job. So it won't leak down to the players. It won't be a problem this year. Trust me on that. It will not be a problem this year. If it continues into the off season, you could create a problem. Okay. So, but it's an easy fix. You know, we just got to set our egos aside and fix it. I mean, that's the bottom line. And I think they'll get that done. There's too much money that's been invested. At Utah, I've never seen a situation like this. I got to be honest. And I was on the staff at Mississippi State when Jackie Sherrill was forced to retire. I was retained and kept by Sylvester Croom. I was there as the administration started to tighten down on him, fire this coordinator, fire that person, and when they brought in a new AD. It's never good. I was at UTEP, and I love Mike Price, but a couple of the key alumni, in my opinion, thought the game had passed him by, per se. And the pressure caused him to retire, and it just wasn't good. It wasn't good, and it affected a lot of players. Utah is different because I've been fired, I've been hired, I've been retained, I've been you name it. I mean, at Utah, I had 3-4 opportunities to leave. 4 opportunities in Witt, and first it was Chris Hill. They did what needed to be done to keep me. Then twice with Mark Harlan. Everything was fine. Everything was done to keep me. The thing is, every AD understands that this is a transitional business. So I never once have I ever submitted a resignation letter. And I'm going to be honest with you, I've never submitted a resume except to Human Resources once I was hired. Okay, so people don't understand how college football or athletics work, period. Let's not talk about football. To me, this has become personal. It is obvious to me now, standing back looking at it, it was time for Witt to go, and it was time for Utah to go a different direction. If they were going to keep the same working relationship within the football coach and the administration, if that makes sense. And so I think that's fairly obvious to me at this point. As far as I read everything that they said, I was with Freddie in the spring when he was here recruiting, and he mentioned it, and I just kind of brushed it off, as far as what was going on. I think this, and I'll stand on the table and say this. I've only notified my employer. When I left BYU, I notified BYU, hey, I'm going to take this job. I notified the AD. I went to the AD. Tom Homo and I were great friends. And I left. It was no big deal. It was, what can we do? And Kalani, everybody knows Kalani is a friend of mine long before Utah. That was the hardest one to leave, was Kalani, because I love the guy. Absolutely love him as a human being and as a person. So that was different. Looking at the situation now, I know we all know Witt. One thing about Witt wants what he wants, and I know he wanted a new practice facility, indoor. Thought it needed to be upgraded, which I will agree with. I know he wanted more money for coaches' salaries whenever a coach left. I know he wanted that. And I'm sure in his mind he had done enough to get what he wanted. I think this whole situation got personal when Morgan, I believe, and don't quote me, but I'm almost sure Morgan had an opportunity to leave, and Witt said he wanted the coach in waiting title restored. They restored it.
Yep.
But Witt doesn't like losing. Okay? Understand, hates losing. If you ever been around him, he's the most miserable person I've ever been around. Makes you miserable when you lose. He's miserable, makes you miserable. It's just misery. And I don't think he wanted to lose Morgan, and I think he thought he was at a point where, hey, I want to retire. Well, it's an old saying in football, 10 years is about 10 to 15 years, and you need to start looking elsewhere for your head coach. And I think it had reached that point that the administration was tired. Okay, you said you were going to do this, now you're going to do this. You said you're going to do this, well, all you keep doing is complaining about what we don't have. You don't want to work within the program. And I think Witt came back and said, no, we're winning. We're the ones bringing the money into the program. I need this. And I think that relationship soured real fast. And we know that head coaches, we have egos, or coaches have egos, and you can rub people the wrong way. And I honestly think that relationship was so strained, and now it's become personal. It's become personal. But again, I'm going to stand on this. If it is true that you're sitting in your office knowing that you're leaving and you are recruiting players or telling players to come with you or even acknowledging it, you're wrong. You're dead ass wrong. I'm sorry. You can't do that. Now, once you have left, if a player reaches out to you in this environment that we're in, you don't owe the University of Utah anything, because it's about winning. And if that's the case, that's totally different.
Right.
But if you're sitting in your office at the University of Utah and this is transpiring, that's wrong. It is at best unethical.
Yeah, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. That's where it got a little sideways with Freddie. Is I think that he kind of just assumed that, as Kyle's leaving, I am too, and didn't go through the proper steps. That from what the university is saying, all the other assistant coaches, all the other strength and conditioning guys, all did go through those steps to I guess end their employment with the University of Utah before doing so. Freddie was still in the facility, still there. So that's where I think the disconnect there comes from. And then, as you mentioned, man, I do agree. I think things got a little personal rather than purely professional on the Kyle Whittingham side, because it was just too much back and forth. It was too much of Kyle, I think, in a couple of parts, wanting to just win and not really caring about what goes on outside of that, but also, Guy, I think, truly changing his mind. I do think Kyle, we go back as far as 2019, 2020, he felt like he was close to retiring, and he was honest with me in those moments in being close to retiring. And then when the time came to retire, and the steps had already been put in place and the transition had already been set in motion, Kyle had a change of heart. He didn't want to leave, and that created a lot of tension up on the Hill, both with Kyle, with Scally, with the administration, and with boosters as well, which have a big say in it in today's age too.
And there's no doubt about that. And I know, I can honestly say that you're right. I know my plan when I came to Utah was to retire with Kyle. I know that was Lud's plan. We was obviously, the three just old-ass people. I mean, let's be honest, when it comes to that game. And so that was the plan. Obviously, It didn't work out for me quite that way with my health and then some other things and within the program. And then for Lud, it didn't quite work out that way. I think if Whit could do it all over again, he never would have said when he was going to retire. Because this is what I know. Kyle Whittingham, no matter what we said, is family, football, skiing, and golf. That's all I know about Kyle. I don't know. I know that's his love, and I think he sat back and realized, hey, I got a pretty good team. I got a chance to win. I want to get to – I know getting to the Rose Bowl was huge. And him and I, we talked about that even after I was gone, because I called him. I said, Coach, you don't understand the Rose Bowl. When the first Ohio State game, I said, that game is unbelievable. And I said, I've been there as a player. It's like nothing you've ever seen. And so I think that was his defining moment, but not winning either one of those Rose Bowls, I think, crushed him. I think when he came back with Cam Rising, he thought he had a shot to go to the national championship or at least get into the playoffs. And that didn't happen. And then you pop up and hit a 12-3 season. You hit a home run on a season, or 11-3, I guess, when he left. And you're thinking, I got these two stud quarterbacks coming back. I feel good about my coaching staff. I'm going to keep all them. All I need to go out is get a couple transfer guys, and we're going to win this Big 12. And obviously, like you said, it rubbed too many people the wrong way of you coming back on your word over and over again. And it's gotten personal. I mean, that's obvious. You look at it, and Freddie, obviously, if every other coach, if what you're telling me is true, every other coach went and submitted resignation letters and handled their business properly. If that's the case, we all know there's two sides of the story, and it falls somewhere in between. In my opinion, Freddie took it for granted. And kind of, and here we are.
Right.
And so we're standing at a table. Will that be a distraction for the players? Hell no. No, guys, it won't. It's It's a great news story. There's not one. Players don't read newspapers. Players don't read stories on the internet unless it's about themselves. Okay, so reading about Freddie Whittingham is not going to affect any player. I promise you that.
Yep.
And, will it have an effect on Morgan Scott? No. Morgan's locked in, ready to go. Morgan's not on social media now. Those coaches in the rooms, they're laughing about. They're totally focused on this first game.
And go ahead. You're good.
No, you go.
I was just saying we don't have long to wait for that first game. So any of these distractions, any of this, what has been from a media perspective, it's actually been nice because usually you get into June, July, and unless you're covering a lot of soccer and baseball, there's not as much to talk about on talk radio, and you got 4 hours to fill. We've had
You're on your 20th story on.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about the quarterbacks one more time. Okay, let's see. Okay, we saw this, and wow, did he look good that 10 minutes I saw at practice?
That has not been a struggle this offseason. We've had plenty to talk about in the college football space over this offseason. But regardless of that, I'm ready to get to actual football. We can analyze it after that whistle blows, and we'll get you on to do so once we get some actual football, Guy.
I appreciate it. Guys, I got to run.
Go ahead.
It's great talking to y'all.
You as well.
And tell everybody up that way good luck, and hopefully what I'd like to see is a Utah BYU championship game for the Big 12. I think that would be exciting for the whole state.
And maybe the winner gets Michigan in the playoff, huh?
Oh my God, would that be something to talk about?
If there is a God,
Thanks, Guy.
Y'all have a good day.
Thanks, Coach. You're the best.
Always fun to get his perspective,
that dude. Oh, I miss him so much. Like that guy just brings it. Well, he's just very honest, very direct, very matter of fact.
Exactly.
He's not brutal honest. He just look, this is how it is.
Not
guys.
trying to light anything on fire, but also, hey, I've been there, I've done that. This is how I see it. This is my perspective on it.
Always so real.
Always good to get that from our Guy Holiday. Hey, help Utah kids start school with confidence. Over 200 kids at the Utah Road Home needs your help with back-to-school clothes, shoes, backpacks, and more. ESPN 700 invites you to be a child's advocate. Visit ESPN700sports.com or AppleTreeForKids.com for more information and to donate now. Back on the other side to wrap this thing up, give you one last PGA Tour leaderboard update, set you loose to today's best, where you'll hear from Bill Riley and the show he did today in place of Sean O'Connell, Chris Kamrani, Mike Yam, Riley Nelson. You'll hear all of that on today's best right here on Utah's #1 sports talk. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Wrapping things up on a Friday edition of The Drive. Porter Larson here. Big thanks for Tony Parks joining me throughout the last couple of days. And on today's show, Coach Guy Holliday. He was great. We'll have that up and available for you later on ESPN700sports.com or wherever you happen to podcast, alongside Kenneth Scott and Paul Pugmire, talking some Utah football, some golf, going all over the map. A few news and notes for you as we hang up on this Friday. Klay Thompson plans to sign a 2-year, nearly $13 million deal with the Miami Heat after clearing waivers following his contract buyout from the Dallas Mavericks on this Friday. The deal includes a player option in the second season. So Klay Thompson headed to Miami to team up with Giannis Antetokounmpo, Bam Adebayo, and others, building quite the roster out there in Miami, but of course one that only going to have a shot or two at this thing. So they're in win-now mode, Pat Riley and co are. Another, I guess you can consider this news and notes. And this isn't to continue to belabor the point and talk about Michigan football. This is more so to bring some Utah fans back in time a little bit. The University of Michigan has decided on its starting units, but will not be releasing a public depth chart and do not want to discuss that depth chart publicly. Asked about when people might see a depth chart for Michigan, Kyle Whittingham says, when they see us play. When you watch Michigan play, you'll see their depth chart. That's what Kyle Whittingham is saying. And where have we heard that one before? We've heard it quite a few times here in Salt Lake City. I am curious, I really am, about how Morgan Scalley handles those types of things. With Kyle, it was, for him, just part of the job that he sometimes didn't care about, but also didn't see a reason to give info publicly in a lot of ways. Right? When your gambling partners or whoever really, really, really want to know who's playing quarterback, your fans as well, let's be clear, people who want to go to the game and watch their favorite athletes. Kyle didn't see a use in that, and especially because if you could keep info from your opponent, even if it's very marginal, it could help you out in some way, shape, or form. I'm really interested in what that type of thing looks like under Morgan Scalley. How much did he learn and take from Kyle in that regard, and how much does he want to do it differently? I think we have a pretty good idea what Utah's depth chart will look like, but what will it look like when released by Morgan Scalley? What will the injury reports look like under Morgan Scalley? Because those, to be clear, under Kyle were basically a joke for him. A lot of times he would, I think, almost mess with folks on the depth chart or play a little gamesmanship with his opponents on who's listed, who's not, when they are not. I think Kyle kind of was poking the bear a little bit with the depth chart and the injury report stuff, almost intentionally. I don't think that Morgan will do that, but I do think that there is a sense that he probably will be pretty close to the vest with a lot of the information coming out of the program. We're going to get him on his coaches' shows. We're going to do the thing. We'll ask him at press conferences, and we'll try to get a good read on what that looks like under Morgan Scalley. But I do think there is at least some of that we saw under Kyle that Morgan will continue, right? We've talked about it on this show a bit. Intel in college football today is at a premium. Yes, for setting betting lines, and the guys in Vegas, they always want to know. The fans always want to know, just to be in the know and to know who they're going to see out on the field. But it comes into real play on the field. Right? We see it with teams the prior regime at Michigan, who went out of their way to get just little signals, little things here and there about their opponents and what they do on the sidelines. Intel gathering, like in military operations or government, whatever it may be, in the college football world is really important. And it was interesting. Morgan and the Utes, a couple times this week, have allowed us up on the hill for practice to survey, look at a little bit of what they're doing. And I appreciate that. Any access is good access as far as that I'm concerned in that regard. But they were really, really calculated and specific about what they showed us. It was a 20-minute span, beginning of practice, where we saw some special team stuff, saw some individual drills, but the amount of like full 11-on-11 football that we're going to see before the Utes kick off is going to be really minimal. Maybe none, to be fair. That makes it hard to give like a full picture for the pregame show guy that you're listening to now. You know, I may have to wait until kickoff to learn much more than you guys know, which is a kind of an interesting spot to be in. And it is interesting to me and will be fun to see how Morgan goes about that side of the job. Because up until now, it's not something he's necessarily had to deal with, right? As a defensive coordinator, you can really just dial in on a game plan, on an opponent, on your reads and your calls, and you don't necessarily have to worry about the other stuff outside of those 100 yards quite as much. As the head football coach, that's all under your purview. You can delegate, and Morgan will. Sometimes Kyle struggled with the delegating part, and that's why some stuff was so limited, because he could only stretch so far. But I am curious and interested to see how Morgan changes or doesn't change in that space. If you're just tuning in, the reason I bring that up is because this morning, media members asked Kyle Whittingham what the Michigan depth chart is. And he flatly told them, you'll find out when we play. You'll find out when we're on the field. And while I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing to do as a coach, right? You don't necessarily have to give your opponents an inch. It's just really funny. in today's age where, let's be clear, we kind of know what the depth chart is. We kind of know who is going to be in certain positions. But for Kyle to not only be so in on the clandestine approach, but to double down on it now in one of the bigger markets in all of college football, it's not only funny to me to see Kyle doing it, it's funny to see the folks in that new market that he's in having to adjust to covering that. The Big Ten for a few years now, I think, has had like a full injury report approved several days before kickoff. Like it goes through several steps. The Big 12, as we know, kind of experimented with it last year. And at Michigan, you're such a big program. There's such a large contingent of folks covering you and national outlets covering you. It's harder to keep those things secret or close to the vest. So to see how Kyle's able to and to see how people react to it in Ann Arbor is kind of interesting to me. We got a little bit of our first taste of it today when he announced that his depth chart will not be made public. Utah's depth chart, however, although not yet entirely public, is one we kind of know about. You're going to see Devin Dampier at quarterback. You're going to see a little bit of Bird Ficklin at quarterback as well. You're going to see Wayshawn Parker in the backfield. He's going to be your lead back. Daniel Bray, Stevie Chavez Soto, maybe even a little Marcus Bell there. At wide receiver, you will see Larry Simmons, Braden Pagan, the transfer from Utah State, Kyrie Scholes from San Jose State. You're going to see Ricky Johnson and Creed Whittemore. Tobias Merriweather expected to, at least from what we're hearing this offseason, bounce back in some form or fashion. A kid who's shown a lot of potential but hasn't produced quite yet. That's what the skill positions on the offensive side will look like. In addition, at the tight end, we're going to see Noah Benny, Hunter Andrews, Will Money, Semi Tuolonga as your rhino, if you will. And then at the offensive line is where we really have questions. I think for the most part, we're pretty confident in seeing Zero-Way Williams, Solatoa Moiai, Alex Harrison, Keith Olson. What does that other tackle spot look like? Is it Kelvin Obot? Is it the transfer Cedric Jefferson? What about the sophomore Isaiah Garcia or Roger Alderman? Reese Parmenter has surfaced as a name to watch out for. There's still 8 or 9 guys that, at least if we are believing what they're telling us, Utah's confident with at the offensive line group. So that's kind of their depth chart there. Who is where, still a question, but I think those are the 8-9 names to look out for on that offensive line. On the defensive side of the football, up front and in the middle, Carson Kafusi, Pupu Sepulona. Pretty confident those will be the first 2 out there. Jai Mo, Lucas Samsula, Jamal Wallace, all the transfers that Utah badly needed to give them depth at D-tackle. You're going to see them rotating in as well. At defensive end, I'm fairly confident at first snap you're going to see Lance Holtzclaw. And then from there, it's Ethan Day, it's Paul Fitzgerald, it's Cash Dillon. Those are probably the guys you're going to see rotating in at the edge. At linebacker, Cyrus Polu, John O'Hall, Trey Reynolds, Elijah Ellis. Probably the 4 names to watch out for in that regard. And then in the defensive backfield, you got some interesting names to play with. You got some returning starters. I think Elijah Davis, Rabbit Evans, J.C. Harder are names that you're a little more familiar with. Rock Caldwell as well. You're going to see those guys playing some corner, maybe some nickel, depending on the matchup. Elijah Reed is a guy that Utah's really excited about, a physical cornerback that I'm sure will be playing up at the line of scrimmage, maybe some nickel from him as well. And then at safety, Jackson Benny, Nate Ritchie, Nate Tillman, and as I mentioned, Rabbit Evans. Probably the names you're going to see on the defensive side of the football. And I'm pretty confident that is at least the majority of the youth depth chart. In special teams, Orion Phillips, you're going to see him punting the ball. You're going to see, I think, Dylan Curtis as your kicker. He's had a really good offseason, but Tanner Cragen, a transfer in, has at least pushed him and made that competitive. I think Orion Phillips will probably be your holder as well. And then punt return, kick return, I expect to see a lot of Mano Carvalho and Daniel Bray. Who else might be in that mix? Still TBD. But I kind of just ran through the entirety of what I believe Utah's depth chart to look like in week 1 against the Idaho Vandals. If you go back and go through all of those, it is clear that the trenches are where there's still some question marks at the offensive and defensive lines. And I'm really excited to see what those look like in week 1. And like I said, how Morgan Scalley handles the public-facing side of the personnel. Is he going to be as clandestine as Kyle? No, I don't think so. But I do think he is going to be very, very calculated and limited with the type of information that he allows out of the locker room and into the public. Sometimes that can be frustrating for fans and for media members and, of course, for gamblers. But I think it's honestly probably usually the right approach for a football coach. A reminder, their job is just to win. Their job is not to suffice the betting lines in Vegas. Their job is not to prepare the broadcast team for a different quarterback. Their job is not to give fans a couple days' notice on who's going to be on the field so they can decide whether they want to go to the game or not. That is not their job. Their job is to win football games. And that's why there's always kind of a disconnect on what type of info gets out and what type of info we'd like to get out. I just thought it was funny to see Kyle decline to publicly discuss his depth chart today at Michigan because that is something we are all too familiar with here in the market in Salt Lake City. I think it surprised some folks in Ann Arbor. Ask anyone in Salt Lake City. They are not surprised about that at all. All right, your final Uinta Golf PGA Tour leaderboard update. We'll give you that on the way out on this Friday afternoon. In the clubhouse, 2 straight 64s and the solo lead, it's Wyndham Clark. He is 12 under for the day, or 12 under for the tournament, rather. 6 under for the day, 64 in both the first and second round. Gary Woodland at 11 under, 5 under today. He shot a 65 in the second round. J.J. Spawn, 10 under. He shot a 66 today and stands at third place. Fourth place, it's Sung J. M. and Chris Gotterup at 9 under. Patrick Cantlay, Michael Thorbjornsen at 8 under. Colin Morikawa and Russell Henley alongside Maverick McNeely and Rory McIlroy at 7 under. And the big mover on the day, Victor Hovland at 6 under alongside Michael Brennan, Justin Thomas, and Christopher Ratton. Ashkay Bhatia, Eric Cole, and Cam Young up there towards the top of the leaderboard as well. And then you got to scroll down to 25th place for Scotty Scheffler, the defending champion in the FedEx Cup points leader. He shot a 72 on Thursday, but came screaming back with a 65 today to get to 3 under and at least make things interesting. Keep him in the conversation for a weekend at the BMW Championship. Of course, a reminder, that is the second phase of the PGA Tour's FedEx Cup playoff. And that PGA Tour leaderboard update brought to you each and every week by our friends at Uinta Golf. Join Uinta Golf by Worldwide Golf Shops today for the latest deals on Ping, Titleist, TaylorMade, Callaway, Mizuno, and more. They've got club fitting technology, a 90-day satisfaction guarantee, indoor hitting bays, an indoor putting green, and experienced service professionals that can help you fit your clubs, repair your clubs, re-grip your clubs, all of the above. It's Uinta Golf, serving Utah golfers since 1971 at uintagolf.com. That'll do it for me. I am Porter Larson, the usual producer of this program. Big thanks to Tony Parks for joining me, Guy Holliday for joining, Paul Pugmire, of course, giving us the latest on the PGA Tour, and Kenneth Gooby Scott, the former Ute wide receiver. All of those will be up and available momentarily at ESPN700sports.com or wherever you happen to podcast. Spence will be back on the drive on a Monday. For all the crew at ESPN 700, wishing you a happy weekend and a fun one at that. This is The Drive on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.